We are going to dive into the Michigan football defensive depth chart. If you missed it, down in the comments and description, I've got my offensive depth chart video link, so make sure you go watch that as well. Defense is interesting, right? If you saw that offensive one, you may not have had too many surprises. I think that the defense, you're going to see a lot of surprises from maybe the depth chart and what Michigan rolls out this entire season. So we will dive into that in just a moment. But let's take a look at today's top poll question. Is Michigan's last two recruiting classes have had a definitive headliner that every single fan was most excited about. 2 years ago, 2021 recruiting class, J.J. McCarthy, 5-star quarterback. And then this past year, 5-star cornerback, Will Johnson. Now, I know this is a defensive depth chart video, but I want to kind of take the pulse of what you guys are thinking. So if you're more excited, let's just call it this season. But if you want to talk about their careers too, just let us know in the comments. But if you're more excited to see this season J.J. McCarthy play, like the video. See how many of you guys like the video. If it's Will Johnson, go ahead and just comment Will below on today's video. Interested to see what you guys think. I'm going J.J. McCarthy, but I do think that Will Johnson has a ton of potential to make an impact on all areas of the ball, including potentially special teams. Little Charles Woodson punt return action later on in his career. Let's start off with the edge/outside linebackers. I think Michigan complicates this a little too much. They brought in this new system with Mike McDonald last year. Now same with Jesse Mintner. It's more of like a 2-2-2-5 system. You've got two interior guys, two stand-up, sometimes not stand-up defensive end outside linebackers, two traditional linebackers, and then 4 or 5 defensive backs. So these are the guys that are replacing David Ojabo and Aiden Hutchinson. Mike Morris, been around for a while, kind of a coup recruit Michigan got after he flipped from Florida State a couple years back. And then Taylor Upshaw. Those are basically your defensive ends, folks, right? There's nothing, we don't want to confuse with the terminology, but we're trying to use it as close to what Michigan uses for a lot of these positions as we can. So your defensive ends, sometimes they're down, sometimes they're up. Mike Morris and Taylor Upshaw. Backups, Jaylen Harrell. Which is kind of funny. Harbaugh has used it two different ways in the past week. He's called him Jaylen Harrell and Jaylen Harrell. So I'm just going to wait for him to come up with a definitive name. Like, who's the tight end for the Cowboys, the Michigan guy? Sean McKeon. I've heard that one, so Harbaugh himself. So Jaylen Harrell, and then Braden McGregor. Some people thought was the next Chase Winovich, the next Aiden Hutchinson. Hasn't really done much in a couple years in Ann Arbor, but those are your guys. Also, expect playing time early, but not necessarily with the 1s or 2s early on. But TJ Guy, younger player, Eyabi Anoma, the now 5th-year player, right, from Alabama, and then UT Martin with the stop at Houston in between there. Looked pretty good in a few practices so far. And then Derrick Moore, Harbaugh gushes about him, says once he figures out his motor and gets another move, he could be unblockable. Those two guys, Anoma and Derrick Moore, I think down the line, right, middle of the season and beyond, they could be situational third down pass rushers that kind of start reminding you of David Ojabo and Aiden Hutchinson at times last year, although I do think both those guys have at least a year until they are potentially those kind of impact players. Michigan is now favored by over 30 points this weekend against Colorado State. If you watched the video I had out on Tuesday, I told you Michigan minus 15.5 in the first half. That's my lock of the week, of the year, of the century, of the day. I'm putting, I don't know, what do you think I should put? 200, 500? 1,000, 250,000 is what I was called on that game. I don't think I have that kind of cash, but nevertheless, I'm going to do it with BetUS. College football, NFL, in-game betting. If you think Michigan's about to go on a run or bench guys, you can do in-game betting. You can even bet on props for the NFL and college football. Will a certain player go over or under so many yards, touchdowns, things like that? It's super fun. Don't bet more than you have to lose potentially, but make sure you get the best deposit bonus in the game. That's with BetUS. Chatsports.com/GoBlue. You got to go to that link. Use that promo code GoBlue with no spaces. BetUS, 125% deposit bonus. Our preferred sportsbook here at Chat Sports. Have a little fun, Try it out this weekend if you haven't yet. Put $10 on 5 games. See how you do. I think you'll find yourself checking the scores a little more and have some more fun with games sometimes you don't even care about. You end up finding yourself watching Maction on a Tuesday night because you bet Toledo minus 12 against Bowling Green or something like that. Chatsports.com/GoBlue. Promo code GoBlue. All right, before we continue on with the depth chart, let me know which team was better. The 2006 Wolverines, who started off 11-0, number 2 in the country when they went into Columbus and lost the heartbreaker 42-39 to Ohio State, and then eventually lost the bowl game, Rose Bowl, to USC, or last year's Wolverines, Big Ten champions, probably not explosive offensively, and didn't, the 2006 team had maybe a few more names, I think, than Michigan had going into the season at least, but both those would probably be unquestioned the best 2 teams of that 15-year period on bookends of it. So let me know down in the comments, 2006 Wolverines or 2021, last year's Big Ten championship Michigan team. Who is the better Wolverine team? All right, later on, I want to just give ourselves a pat in the back. So watch towards the end of the show some international recognition. Talk to the folks at YouTube, and they gave us some really interesting stats about this show when it comes to college football Michigan fans internationally. So stay tuned for that later on in the show. Now it's your interior defensive line depth chart, and this is not the standard group that you're going to see from Michigan in a lot of ways, but it's what Jim Harbaugh calls the base defense, although Michigan only runs it something like 12 to 15%. I've seen 2 different numbers throughout all of last season, so don't expect these to be the guys that walk out for the first snap in really any game this season. But Kris Jenkins and Mazi Smith, right? Those are your interior defensive starters, although Mason Graham, true freshman out of the state of California, top 250, 300 recruit, depending on what service you use, he is the starter in that base package. And what this looks like is that when Michigan wants to have 5 defensive linemen, probably in a obvious running situation, then that's the base package. Or if the team comes out with 2 tight ends and only 1 wide receiver, a couple of running backs, where it's more likely to run, you have Michigan with 3, I'll call them nose tackles, defensive tackles, and then you'll still have those 2 guys on the outside, hands down, hands not down. So that's the base defensive package. But your starters, Kris Jenkins, Mazi Smith, some backups to expect. Harbaugh mentioned George Rooks, Dominic Giudice, who's got Giudice, who's kind of one of the better soprano-style haircuts you'll ever see. And then Harbaugh went on and on behind Mason Graham with Rayshaun Benny, who I think can get snaps throughout the season. Cam Goode, the transfer from UCF, and then Kenneth Grant. A lot of guys potential to play, but if history is anything, Kris Jenkins, Mazi Smith will be the 2 players who you're going to see in there most often for this Wolverines interior defensive line. All right, we've got vacations and people taking trips this weekend here at the company. So I found myself without a normal producer for this weekend's game because I'm taking a trip before the NFL season with my girlfriend or something stupid like that. Probably getting fired anyways. So backup producer potentially, he gave me a challenge. He said, I'll work on my day off, James, but you got to prove that your audience, they want a video. So I'll produce it myself if I have to. It might be a shoddier video. But nevertheless, if you want a producer, so we have all these graphics and stuff that go on my verbal cue, help us out. He said if we get 10 Facebook shares, he'll come in on Saturday on his day off and produce for me. So go ahead and take this link on YouTube, share it on Facebook. I'll check the Facebook open graph later on today, tomorrow. Saturday morning, I got to send him a screenshot that shows we've got 10 Facebook shares. We do that, you've got a fully produced post-game video for me on Saturday. So help your boy out. Share this video on Facebook. Interior linebackers, which I think are really your true linebackers, not to be confused with the edge/outside linebackers, Mike Morris and Taylor Upshaw. Starters here, it's really a starter by injury. Junior Colson is the unquestioned starter, but Mike Barrett, been around for a long time, maybe fit better in Don Brown's defense as that Viper role, but he is your starter for this opening game. But Nikhai Hill-Green was slated to be the starter. Don't expect him to be in the game this week. We're putting him in a backup because of injury, some sort of soft tissue injury. Other guys that will get into the game this week, though, Kalel Mullings and Jimmy Rolder, right? A recruit from a couple years ago, defensive side of the ball that honestly people forgot about, right? A top 200 player, 4-star. So excited to see if he brings anything to the table at that linebacker position. Junior Colson, though, I think, along with Mazi Smith, will be your unquestioned stars of this year's defense. And Michael Barrett, can he regain, feels like he's been around forever too, can he kind of grab hold of that starting linebacker position while Nikhai Hill-Green is injured and hold on to it throughout the rest of the season? It'll be interesting to see what comes of that. Let's go over to the defensive back depth chart. Some surprises here, right? Some surprises. The emergence, I guess, reemergence of Jamon Green has been a starter at times of the last 2 seasons, but both years he kind of lost his starting position by a few games into the year. Last year he was replaced by DJ Turner, who now is his co-starter. And you'll see Will Johnson. He's going to be your backup first cornerback in the game, really at the outside or at that nickel position where Mike Sainristil is your starter. 3 years at wide receiver, was a high school cornerback, recruited as a cornerback, and then came over, was making more of an impact at wide receiver in 2019. And now he switched the side of the ball. He's got 2 years of eligibility left, does Sainristil. So he could be around for a while at that position and find himself in the NFL after playing wide receiver and being a high contributor for 3 years. At the safety position, Rod Moore returning as a second-year starter, took over mid-year last year. RJ Moten. Both positions will kind of be backed up by Makari Paige. Harbaugh's really hyped him up as your third starting safety. And then keep an eye out for Caden Kolesar, another guy who seems to have been around forever. He'll be your fourth safety, and Harbaugh said your top special teams player. So if you hear Caden Kolesar's name on kickoff returns, punt returns, making tackles on the defensive side for Michigan, that should come as no surprise to you guys. Finally, on our defensive depth chart, I'm not going to talk about the kicker and the punter, right? Michigan is the best kicker and the best punter in all of college football this year, returning. So everyone knows about that. But punt returner, I think I was a little off last week. If you guys remember, I gave you, Ronnie Bell, I said, and Blake Corum. Turns out that was earlier in camp, and as things emerged on, Roman Wilson and A.J. Henning really seized those jobs. And then Harbaugh named another guy, Joe Taylor, a walk-on, will be your second kick returner, kind of the off-ball kick returner, maybe the lead blocker unless it's a short kick. There for the Wolverines. So that is your defensive starters and your starting returners for this Wolverines heading into their opener as defending Big Ten champions Saturday against Colorado State. Big time news. Just got off the phone with some interesting folks from the digital media space, and we teased this last week, but we are officially the number one Michigan football program in all of Mexico, added on to the number one football program in America. I'm sure there's other countries out there, but we are not only the kings of Michigan football media in America, but also en Espanol and Mexico. My son speaks Spanish fluently, a 5-year-old. That's no joke. So we'll have him start translating some stuff, and so we can give some lines to all of you for watching in Mexico. So thank you to the Mexican audience, thousands strong, I'm sure. We'll try and get this bad boy in Spanish at some point there. All right, folks. Michigan, Colorado State. Make sure you're watching. Make sure you join us for our post-game show the instant the game is over. 20 minutes the game is over. I'll have a video up for 20, 30 minutes afterwards. Until then, go Blue.